My name is Stacy Cervenka, and I am a legislative assistant for Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas. I'm also a former AAPD congressional intern. I was only 10 years old when the ADA passed, so I don't have a lot of adult experience before the ADA, well, any real adult experience before the ADA, but I've certainly heard horror stories. And for me, the ADA means the right to take for granted that I should be allowed in any public place, whether it's a place of entertainment, a place of business, a place of public accommodation like a hotel, and that I completely take for granted my right to be there and that my needs will be accommodated. I know that that's still not completely the case even today, and many of us with disabilities run into situations where we don't feel welcome in certain places and in certain programs, but the ADA has certainly meant for me that I believe that I belong integrated in society. Well, again, I was very young when the ADA was passed, so I don't have a whole lot of memories before I was 9 or 10 years old, but as far as changes, I understand that I expect to be taken seriously when I interview for a job, and at least now when people with disabilities do face discrimination and do face prejudice, we have a legal leg to stand on, and we feel entitled, in the good sense of the word, to be treated equally and to be given equal consideration and equal opportunities. I think the biggest change has really been that even though discrimination still exists, that at least now we have a mechanism and we have, we have a law that backs us up. We have legislation that backs us up, whereas we didn't have that before. People with disabilities are still discriminated in employment, in housing, in transportation, and education, and many aspects of life. But now we can fight this, where, back in 1960, 1970, if somebody told you, hey, we can't hire you because you're blind, that was just how it was, and you just kind of had to deal with that, where now you have a law. I often think of, as a woman who, I want to have a family someday, and that means either having children or adopting children. It used to be that, the state could take my children away because I was blind, or they might say you can't adopt a child because you're blind, where, and I just would have to deal with that, and I think that's very tragic, where now I can say, all right, I have the law on my side. I might face certain situations, but I have people I can go to, and I have, the law of the land behind me. Well, the ADA itself, I think, is a great law. So the changes that I think need to be made aren't necessarily to the ADA itself, but to the implementation of the ADA and to the way that the ADA is perceived in the hearts and minds of society. I think we have, a law does a lot for people, but it doesn't do a lot of good if people don't know about the law, if they don't understand the law, and if they don't understand the intentions behind the law. I once read somewhere that the ADA is different from other civil rights laws, and that for example, with racial civil rights, there was a public consensus that this needed to be done. There were marches, there were demonstrations, there was public outrage, and the majority, or at least a huge sector of people felt that this needed to be the law, and so it became the law. Where the ADA, I feel like it became the law first, and now we're working to get the public on our side and to have those demonstrations and to have people, the majority of people, really understand the point of the ADA. So I really think that changing hearts and minds is very important, and understanding what the ADA does. To understand that you have the right to be reasonably accommodated, but that you have the right to refuse those accommodations as well. So I think really understanding the ADA and really embracing the ADA as a society is where we need to change the most.